Welcome to Accelerated Engineering. My name is John, and today I'm going to answer the question that starts with a please, which is really what intrigued me. So when he said please, I'm in need of an Excel formula that will automatically spread or distribute the value of in a cell among 4 cells. For example, if I input 40 in cell F5, it will automatically be spread into 10, 10, 10, and 10 in cells E5 through B5, respectively. That's a great question, and it's a nifty thing because it's not something that there is a native Excel formula to do exactly. I think you'll see several answers to this question that say, well, if that's what you need, for example, value 40 in this cell, well then just take this value and divide it by 4. Be careful with how you use the reference and spread it across the cells. And yeah, that's a way to do it. And it works well if you only ever have, well, actually it will take this number and divide it up nicely, but it works well if you only ever have 4 cells. So I feel like there's got to be a better way to do this, right? And the answer is, well, of course there is. And the way to use this is going to be using a lambda function. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to build a lambda function that distributes across an arbitrary number of cells with an arbitrary input value. Now, for the time being, I am going to make this working left to right, and then I'll put the specific case working from, well, we're working a little bit differently, but with this. Okay. So the first thing is, let's build an example that specifically deals with dividing 40 across 4 cells in sets of 10. I'm going to use the sequence function, which is a part of Microsoft 365, very necessary, and say that, well, I only want this to smear across 1 row, but I need 4 columns. My starting value is going to be 40 divided by 4, will be important, and my steps are 0, so it increases by 0 every time in this sequence. And right away, it puts a dynamic array and smears the value 40 across 4 cells. If I wanted to change it to smear across 5 cells, I would have to change that in 2 places, and it smears to 8 in 5 cells. And you know what? I think I like the name smear. I think when we name this function, we're going to call it smear. Okay. Now, the problem with this is I have to go and modify it every time. And I have to modify 2 different things and remember that. So let's not do that anymore. Instead of using just a sequence function, let's use a lambda function. Lambda functions allow us to name variables and pass variables into this function in a little bit more of a clever way. So I'm going to call this function, or I'm going to start this with lambda. The variables that I want to use in this lambda function are value to smear and how many cells to smear it across. So I'm going to say how far to smear. There we go. Those will be my 2 named variables. And I'll close the lambda function right away just to make sure that I don't forget later. Okay, so now my sequence function, which already works, well, I know B2 held the value I wanted to smear, so let's add the value to smear into there. But now I've got 4 in 2 places, and I can use my how far to smear variable in both of those places. Oops, how far to smear there, and how far to smear there. And then in order to make this work, I'm going to feed it the values B2 and 4. And I should get exactly the same answer out after this. And indeed I do. But now if I want to change it, if I want to smear it across 5 columns, I can just change this location to a 5. And it's done. It works just like that. Now that's all fine and good, but what if I want to, this is a lot of function to write down, what if I don't want to use that? And the answer is to make it into a custom callable function. And this is in Microsoft 365, so easy to do now. Take all the text for this formula, not including the references or the values that are fed to it. Remember, because B2 is being fed into the value to smear, and phi is being put into the value how far to smear. Just take all the values that are not these fed in values and copy it. Enter. Under the Formulas tab of the ribbon, go into the Name Manager and create a new named variable, which I'm going to call smear. And input in the reference all of that. I just hit Control V to paste all of the function that we've just written. I'm going to comment input value to be evenly spread across arbitrary number of columns. Okay, hit OK, and hit close, and that should work just fine. If I input the value 40, let's say equals smear, a new function, and give it the smear value and tell it how far to smear. Then it just does it automatically, and it does it every time. If I wanted to be a little bit more general, say I wanted to do this multiple times, I could say, well, here, we'll just smear this value across this many cells, and we can actually change how many cells it gets smeared across and have it be different because this function is now flexible. Let's smear it across 10 cells, 4s all the way down. Smear it across 20 cells, 2s all the way down. Lovely little arbitrary function. Of course, it doesn't have any error handling, and we could smear it across 1 cell or 2 cells. We can do it however we want. But this solves the problem presented for all cases as long as you want it to be evenly spread across all the cells. And I think that that answers the question quite thoroughly. Now, this would be a great time to like and subscribe to the video and the channel respectively, and then take a look down in the description, and I'm going to put this Lambda function into the description below. So you can just copy it and put it directly into your Excel spreadsheet. You do have to go through the name manager step. I can't do that for you, but everything you need should be in the description below. I hope that you found this helpful. Be excelling.